On a bitterly cold morning, Jude, a single father, carried his newborn twin babies strapped tightly to his chest as he walked into a pawn shop, hoping to sell an old bicycle to buy milk for his children. But the shop owner refused to bargain. He coldly threw the bicycle out onto the sidewalk, ignoring the heart-rending cries of the babies. Forced into the street in humiliation, Jude dragged himself to a nearby bus stop where he nearly collapsed. At that moment, a black Bentley pulled over. A well-dressed woman stepped out, and Jude suddenly realized that the small act of kindness he had shown her the day before was now changing his life. Before we go back, let us know where you're watching from, and subscribe because tomorrow I've got something extra special for you. The bicycle chain squeaked with every rotation, a rusty rhythm that cut through the cold morning air. Jude pushed forward, his breath forming white clouds that dissolved into nothing. His hands, calloused, scarred from years of manual labor, gripped the handlebars tight as he adjusted the fabric sling across his chest. "Shh, baby girl. Almost there," he whispered. Maya stirred against his back, her tiny fist clutching his worn jacket. Zoe remained still on his chest, her breathing soft and steady. The double sling he'd fashioned from old bedsheets pressed into his shoulders, but he barely felt it anymore. 6 months of carrying them like this had turned the weight into something familiar, almost comforting. The streets of Riverside Heights gleamed with early frost. Luxury cars purred past him, their drivers not even glancing his way. Jude kept his head down, pushing the bicycle along the sidewalk. The frame rattled with each bump, the paint long since chipped away to reveal patches of rust underneath. He passed a bakery. The smell hit him like a punch. Fresh bread cinnamon rolls, something sweet he couldn't name. His stomach twisted. When had he last eaten? Yesterday morning, the day before. It didn't matter. The last $7 in his pocket had one purpose: baby formula. The canister at home was empty, and Maya had cried herself to sleep last night. Just a little further, girls. His fingers found the bicycle frame, tracing the faded blue paint near the handlebar. Sarah's bicycle. She'd ridden it to work every morning, her laughter trailing behind her like music. Now it was all he had left of her, this and their daughters. The pawn shop appeared ahead, its neon sign flickering weakly in the gray morning. Joe's Cash and Carry. Jude had walked past it a dozen times, always telling himself he wouldn't come to this. But Maya's cry last night had shattered that promise. He stopped outside, checking on both girls. Maya's eyes fluttered open, deep brown and trusting. She smiled at him, and something inside his chest cracked. "Daddy's got this," he said, though he wasn't sure who he was reassuring. The shop door chimed as he entered. Darkness swallowed him. The place smelled of mothballs and desperation, other people's belongings crammed onto shelves waiting for owners who might never return. A glass counter ran along one wall displaying watches, rings, and jewelry that told stories of financial collapse. Behind the counter sat Joe Martinez, a thick-necked man in his 50s with slicked-back hair and a permanent sneer. He looked up from his phone, his eyes scanning Jude from head to toe. The assessment took less than 2 seconds. "We're closed," Joe said, returning to his phone. "Sign says you open at 8. It's 8:15. Joe sighed heavily, as if Jude's presence was a personal insult. What do you want?" Jude carefully adjusted the sling, making sure both girls were secure. He lifted the bicycle, rolling it forward. "I need to sell this." Joe's laugh was sharp and ugly. "That piece of shit? It's vintage, a Schwinn cruiser from the 70s. The frame's solid. Someone could restore it or use it for parts. It's got good bones." "Good bones." Joe stood up, walking around the counter. He wore expensive sneakers, the kind that cost more than Jude made in a month when he had work. "Let me tell you something about good bones, pal. That bike is garbage. Look at it. The chains rusted through, the tires are flat, the seats ripped. I wouldn't give you $5 for it." Jude's jaw tightened. "I'm not asking for much. $20. That's it." "20? Joe laughed again, louder this time. "You're out of your mind." "Please." The word tasted like ash in Jude's mouth. "My daughters need formula. I've got nothing else." Joe's eyes flickered to Maya and Zoe, then back to Jude. Something cold settled in his expression. "Not my problem. You want money? Get a job." "I'm trying. I've applied everywhere. Construction warehouses, restaurants. Nobody's hiring right now." "Maybe try harder." Joe crossed his arms. "Or maybe stop having kids you can't afford." The words hung in the air like poison. Jude felt his hands curl into fists, then forced them to relax. He couldn't afford anger. Not now. The bicycle, Jude said quietly. Just take another look. The frame alone. I told you, I don't want your trash. It's not trash. It was my wife's. I don't care if it was the Queen of England's. Get it out of my shop. Zoe began to whimper. The sound cut through everything else, pure and helpless. Jude bounced gently, trying to soothe her, but she was hungry. They both were. $10, Jude said. His voice cracked. Please, just 10. Joe's face twisted with disgust. You deaf, I said no. Now get out before I call the cops. I'm not doing anything wrong. You're loitering. You're making my shop look bad, standing there with your kids strapped to you like some kind of circus act. People like you. People like me. Jude's voice dropped. Say it. Go ahead. Joe's lip curled. Get out. For a moment, neither man moved. Maya started crying now, too, a thin wail that echoed off the shop's walls. Jude looked down at her scrunched-up face and tiny trembling chin, and felt something inside him break. Keep your money, he said. He turned toward the door, guiding the bicycle with one hand. He was almost outside when Joe's voice stopped him. Hey! Jude turned. Joe grabbed the bicycle's frame and yanked it forward. I said this doesn't belong in my shop. Before Jude could react, Joe shoved the bicycle toward the door. The front wheel caught on the threshold. The whole thing toppled sideways, hitting the sidewalk with a crash that made both girls shriek. There's your trash right where it belongs. Joe slammed the door. The lock clicked. Jude stood on the sidewalk, staring at the bicycle lying on its side. The front wheel spun slowly, clicking with each revolution. Snow had started falling, light, delicate flakes that melted on contact with his skin. Maya was screaming now, her face red. Zoe joined her, their cries overlapping in a symphony of misery. Other pedestrians hurried past, eyes averted. A woman in a fur coat pulled her child closer, as if poverty might be contagious. Jude bent down, riding the bicycle. The handlebar was bent, now twisted at an angle. He tried to straighten it, but his hands were shaking too badly. The cold, the hunger, the weight of everything pressing down on him. I'm sorry, he whispered to the bicycle, to Sarah. I'm so sorry. Maya's crying intensified. He could feel her little body shaking against his back, could hear the desperation in her voice. She needed food. They both did. And he had nothing. No money, no job, no options left. The snow fell harder. Jude stood there, one hand on the bicycle, the other supporting Zoe's head. People flowed around him like water around a stone, and for the first time since Sarah died, he felt truly invisible. The world had turned its back, and he had nowhere left to go. He closed his eyes, feeling the snowflakes catch in his beard on his eyelashes. Maya's cries had softened to exhausted whimpers. Zoe had gone quiet, which somehow felt worse. Okay, he said to no one. Okay. He had to move, had to figure something out. He always did. He had to because these two little girls depended on him, and he could not let them down. Jude straightened, adjusting both slings. He gripped the bicycle's bent handlebar and began pushing again back into the cold, back into the city that had no place for people like him. But somewhere deep inside, beneath the exhaustion and the fear and the grinding humiliation, a small flame still burned. He was still standing, and as long as he was standing, there was still hope, even if he couldn't see it yet. Jude made it half a block before his legs nearly gave out. The snow was falling heavier now, coating the sidewalk in a thin, white layer. He stopped beside a bus shelter, leaning the bicycle against the glass wall. His breath came in ragged gasps. Maya had gone quiet against his back, too quiet. Zoe's small hand clutched at his jacket, her whimpers barely audible over the traffic. Just rest, he muttered. 1 minute. 3 cars back, Charlotte Whitmore sat in the rear seat of a black Bentley, her phone pressed to her ear. The merger projections look solid. Her CFO's voice droned through the speaker. We're talking a 42% increase in market share if we... Charlotte wasn't listening. Her eyes had fixed on something outside the tinted window, a man pushing a broken bicycle through the snow. 2 babies strapped to his body. Even from this distance, she could see him struggling. Wait, She knew that man. Ms. Whitmore, are you there? Hold on, she said. It was him. 3 days ago, she'd dropped her laptop bag while getting into her car. Papers had scattered everywhere. This same man, this stranger, had stopped to help her gather them, even though he was clearly in a hurry. She'd tried to thank him, but he just nodded and walked away before she could say anything. Now he stood hunched in a bus shelter, looking like the world had crushed him. The babies were crying. Charlotte's chest tightened. Something about the scene, the way he held them, the protective curve of his body triggered a memory she'd spent years burying. Her brother, the accident. Her father's cold voice. Weakness is death in this business, Charlotte. Remember that. She'd been 12. Michael had been 8. Ms. Whitmore. Reschedule the call, she said. But we're in the middle of... I said reschedule. Charlotte ended the call. Her driver Marcus glanced at her in the rearview mirror. Everything all right, ma'am? Stop the car. Here, we're at an intersection. Now, Marcus. The Bentley rolled to a smooth stop. Horns blared behind them. Her assistant, Jennifer, looked up from her tablet, alarmed. Miss Whitmore, we have the board meeting in 20 minutes. Charlotte was already opening the door. Wait your shoes. Too late. Charlotte stepped onto the slushy sidewalk, her $1,500 Louboutin sinking into a puddle of grimy water. The cold bit through her silk blouse. She'd left her coat in the car. Jennifer scrambled out after her. Miss Whitmore, please. What are you doing? Charlotte ignored her, walking toward the bus shelter. The man hadn't noticed her yet. He was bent over one of the babies, adjusting the sling, murmuring something she couldn't hear. Up close, she could see the exhaustion carved into his face, the tremor in his hands, the way his shoulders sagged under invisible weight. Excuse me, she said. Jude's head snapped up. His eyes went wide, then suspicious. He straightened, positioning himself between her and the babies. I don't want trouble, he said. I'm not here to cause any. Charlotte kept her voice gentle. I recognize you. You helped me a few days ago, with my papers. Recognition flickered across his face. Oh, yeah, that was nothing. It wasn't nothing to me. She glanced at the bicycle, the bent handlebar, the rust. What happened? Doesn't matter. His jaw tightened. Look, if you're with child services or something. I'm not. Then what do you want? Charlotte hesitated. What did she want? She'd acted on pure instinct, and now she stood here in ruined shoes, getting strange looks from her assistant with no real plan. I want to buy your bicycle, she said. Jude blinked. What? Your bicycle. I'll buy it. It's broken. I can see that. Then why? He stopped studying her, really looking at her. The designer clothes, the expensive jewelry, the Bentley idling in the middle of the street. This some kind of joke? No joke. Lady, I just tried to sell this thing for $10 and got thrown out. You really expect me to believe $500? Charlotte said. The number hung between them. Behind Jude, Jennifer gasped. Even Marcus, still sitting in the driver's seat, turned to stare. Jude's face went blank. You're serious? Completely. Why? Good question. Charlotte looked at the bicycle again, then at the babies, their tear-stained faces, their two thin bodies under layers of worn fabric. The answer came to her clearly, like something she'd always known. Because you need it, she said simply, and I can afford it. I don't need charity. It's not charity. It's a transaction. I'm buying something you're selling it. For $500. For this piece of junk. Yes. Jude shook his head slowly. What's the catch? No catch. There's always a catch. His voice was hard now. Rich people don't just hand out money. What do you want pictures for your Instagram, some feel-good story you can tell at parties? The accusation stung because it wasn't entirely unfair. Charlotte had seen enough performative charity in her circles to fill a stadium. I want nothing, she said quietly, except to help. I don't know you. You don't have to. Jennifer stepped forward, her voice sharp. Miss Whitmore, we really need to go. The board. Let them wait. Charlotte pulled out her phone, opening her banking app. What's your name? Jude hesitated. Why? So I know who to make the transfer to. I don't have a bank account. Of course he didn't. Charlotte switched tactics. There's a grocery store 2 blocks from here. Riverside Market. Come with me. I'll buy you supplies instead. I told you I don't need. One of the babies, the one on his chest, let out a weak cry. The sound was heartbreaking. Jude's entire body tensed. His hand moved to support the baby's head, and Charlotte saw his expression shift, saw the exact moment his pride lost the battle against necessity. Just formula, he said roughly, and diapers. That's it. Deal. Riverside Market was the kind of place Jude had walked past hundreds of times, but never entered. Gleaming floors, soft lighting, prices that made his stomach turn. Charlotte walked in like she owned it. Maybe she did. Jude wouldn't be surprised. She grabbed a shopping cart. What brand of formula do they use? Generic. The store brand. What about organic? I've heard. Store brand, Jude repeated. It's what they're used to. Charlotte nodded, loading 3 large containers into the cart, then diapers, the big boxes, then wipes. That's enough, Jude said. Charlotte kept shopping. Baby food, clothes, blankets. Stop. Jude grabbed the cart. I said that's enough. But they need formula and diapers. That's what we agreed on. I'm not taking anything else. Charlotte studied him. Most people would have grabbed everything they could, would have milked this for all it was worth. But Jude stood there rigid, refusing to take more than necessary. You're very stubborn, she said. I have self-respect. That's not what I meant. Isn't it? Jude's voice dropped. Look, I appreciate what you're doing. Really. But I don't need pity. I don't need some rich lady playing savior so she can feel good about herself. I just need to feed my daughters. That's it. The words should have angered her. Instead, Charlotte felt something close to admiration. You're right, she said. I apologize. That was presumptuous of me. Jude blinked, clearly not expecting that. Charlotte removed the extra items, leaving only the formula and diapers. At the register, she paid without comment. $463. She barely noticed. Outside, the snow had stopped. Jude loaded the supplies into an old backpack he'd been carrying. His hands moved efficiently, making sure everything was secure. Thank you, he said quietly. You're welcome. He turned to leave. Wait, Charlotte said. Let me give you a ride home, please. It's cold, and you're carrying. We'll manage. I know you will, but you don't have to. Jude looked at her for a long moment. She could see him weighing options, calculating risks. Finally, he glanced down at the babies, both sleeping, now their little faces peaceful, and nodded. Just to my neighborhood, not my building. Understood. Jennifer looked horrified when they approached the Bentley. Miss Whitmore, the board meeting. Tell them I had an emergency. We'll reschedule. But Mr. Harrison specifically said, Jennifer! Charlotte's voice turned to steel. I don't care what my father said. This is important. Marcus opened the rear door. Jude hesitated, then carefully climbed in, mindful of the babies. Charlotte slid in beside him. The interior probably cost more than Jude made in a year. He sat stiffly, not touching anything, eyes straight ahead. Where to? Marcus asked. Jude gave an address in the warehouse district, the worst part of town. Charlotte had driven past it before, always with locked doors. They rode in silence. Charlotte wanted to ask questions about the babies, about their mother, about how he'd ended up here, but something in his posture told her he wasn't ready for that conversation. When they reached his neighborhood, Jude pointed. Here's fine. Marcus stopped. Jude opened the door, then paused. Why did you do this? He asked. Charlotte considered lying, considered some polite deflection, but those eyes, tired and wary but still searching for truth, deserved better. I had a brother once, she said. He died when I was young. My father was too busy to notice until it was too late. Seeing you with your daughters, it reminded me that some things matter more than money, more than meetings and mergers. She met his gaze. You're a good father. They're lucky to have you. Something shifted in Jude's expression. Not quite trust, but maybe the beginning of it. Take care of yourself, Charlotte said. You too. He climbed out, adjusting both slings. Charlotte watched him walk away, the broken bicycle in one hand, his daughters secure against his body. Marcus cleared his throat. The office, ma'am. Yes, but take the long way. She needed a few more minutes before facing her father's wrath. A few more minutes to hold on to this feeling, the strange, unfamiliar warmth of having done something that mattered. In the distance, Jude turned a corner and disappeared. Charlotte wondered if she'd ever see him again. Somehow, she suspected she would. 4 days later, Charlotte found herself standing outside a crumbling apartment building in the warehouse district, wondering if she'd lost her mind. She'd thought about Jude constantly since their encounter. During board meetings, she'd zone out picturing those 2 babies. At dinner parties, she'd make excuses to leave early. Her father had noticed, and his disapproval hung over every conversation. But she couldn't shake the image of Jude walking away into the snow. The building's front door hung crooked on its hinges. Inside, the hallway smelled of mold and grease. Pipes dripped somewhere in the walls. Charlotte climbed the stairs, avoiding spots where the wood looked rotten. 3rd floor, apartment 3C. She knocked footsteps. Then silence. Someone was looking through the peephole. It's Charlotte, she said, from the other day. I brought some things for the girls. The door opened a crack. Jude's face appeared suspicious. How did you find me? You told my driver this address. I said the neighborhood, not the building. I asked around. Charlotte lifted her bag. Just some formula and vegetables. Nothing excessive. I told you I don't need charity. I know. But I was thinking about Maya and Zoe, and a baby's cry interrupted her. Then another. Jude's shoulders sagged. I have to go, please. I'll wait. He hesitated, then stepped back. 5 minutes. Charlotte followed him inside. The apartment hit her like a punch. One room, maybe 300 square feet. Water stains across the ceiling, mold patches on walls that someone had scrubbed hard, a radiator clanking uselessly in the corner. But everything was spotless. The floor gleamed, dishes stacked neatly on a counter, baby clothes hung on a line perfectly folded, a mattress on the floor, one wooden chair that looked ready to collapse. Jude was already working. He'd laid out 2 clean towels, positioning Maya and Zoe side by side. Their cries intensified. Shh, I know babies. His hands moved with practiced efficiency. He checked diapers first. Just wet. Okay, let's fix that. Charlotte watched, mesmerized. He changed Maya first, his large hand surprisingly gentle. The baby's cries softened as he cleaned and powdered her. That's my girl. Much better, right? He moved to Zoe, repeating the process. Within 3 minutes, both babies were changed and calmed. Then the formula. Jude had a system bottles lined up, water-measured powder scooped precisely. He tested the temperature on his wrist before offering the first bottle to Maya. She latched on immediately. Jude cradled her in one arm while preparing the second bottle. When ready, he positioned both babies, one on each arm, both feeding simultaneously. Charlotte had never seen anything like it. This man, living in poverty, executing childcare with more skill than any professional nanny. How do you do that? She asked quietly. Practice. When it's just you learn fast. Jude didn't look up. Or you don't survive. Their mother died 6 months ago. I'm sorry. Yeah, me too. The babies drank steadily. When the bottles were empty, Jude burped them both, then laid them in a makeshift crib fashioned from a drawer and blankets. Both girls fell asleep almost immediately. Jude straightened, rolling his shoulders. 5 minutes are up. Let me stay longer. Why would you want to? Because I want to understand. Understand what poverty. You can't learn that in an afternoon. No, but I can learn about you, about how you manage this. Jude studied her, then moved to the counter. You want tea? It's cheap, but it's hot. Yes. Thank you. He filled a dented kettle. The faucet sputtered, then sprayed water, hitting the counter. Damn it. Jude grabbed a rag. Thing's been broken for weeks. Landlord won't fix it. Charlotte moved closer. May I look? You know plumbing. I know how things should work. She crouched down, opening the cabinet. The pipe connection was loose, wrapped in failing duct tape. Water dripped into a bucket. You have tools. Jude pointed to a small toolbox. Just basics. Charlotte found a wrench. She positioned herself under the sink, her jeans getting soaked. She didn't care. You're going to ruin your clothes, Jude said. I have others. She worked the wrench around the connection, trying to remember what she'd learned from maintenance crews. The fitting was corroded, but not stripped. She tightened it carefully. Little more, Jude said, kneeling beside her. His hand covered hers on the wrench, guiding. There. Now back a quarter turn so it doesn't crack. They worked together, heads close in the dim space. The leak stopped. Turn on the faucet, she said. Jude did. Water ran clean. I'll be damned. He laughed and the sound transformed his face. You actually fixed it. We fixed it. Charlotte emerged from under the sink, hair disheveled, shirt wet. She felt absurdly proud. Jude handed her a towel, threadbare but clean. Their fingers touched briefly. Thank you, he said quietly. You're welcome. The kettle whistled. Jude poured 2 cups, handing her one. He sat on the chair. She sat on the floor beside it. The tea was terrible. Charlotte drank it anyway. Sarah, Jude said suddenly. That was her name. My wife. Charlotte waited. We met at a community center. She was volunteering, teaching kids to read. I was picking up donated clothes. He stared into his tea. She didn't care that I was broke. We got married 6 months later. She sounds wonderful. She was. Best thing that ever happened to me. His voice cracked. She got pregnant. Twins. The doctor said there might be complications, but Sarah was strong. She kept saying everything would be fine. Charlotte's chest tightened. Labor was 36 hours. Something went wrong. Emergency C-section. They got the babies out safe. But Sarah, she hemorrhaged. They couldn't stop it. Jude's hands trembled. She held Maya and Zoe for 10 minutes. Then she was gone. Jude, Her family blamed me, said I'd killed her by getting her pregnant, said a man like me had no business with their daughter. His laugh was bitter. They cut all contact, wouldn't even come to the funeral. That's horrible. They were rich, white. I was neither. He looked at her. They saw me the way most people do, as nothing. Charlotte felt something crack inside her chest. You're not nothing. You're raising two beautiful daughters. You're surviving impossible circumstances. That takes more strength than anything I've ever done. Is it strength or just desperation? Both. And there's no shame in that. Jude was quiet for a long moment. Why do you care? You don't know me. Maybe I'm tired of not caring about things that matter. And I matter. Yes. The word came out before Charlotte could stop it. You do. They sat in silence, drinking bad tea, while two babies slept peacefully nearby. Charlotte glanced around the apartment again. Every surface clean despite the decay. Everything organized despite having nothing. This was dignity. Real dignity. Not the manufactured kind she'd been taught. Your father, Jude said. He know you're here. God no. He'd lose his mind. Because I'm poor. Because you're not part of his plan. He has very specific ideas about how I should spend my time. Let me guess. Rich people, connected people. Exactly. Charlotte set down her cup. My whole life has been about maintaining appearances. The right schools, the right people, the right marriage prospects. I'm 32, and I've never made a single choice that was just mine. Then why now? Why me? Charlotte considered the question, because when I saw you with your daughters, I saw something I've been missing. Purpose. Real purpose, not profit margins, just love. Jude was quiet. Love doesn't pay rent. No, but it's worth more than money can buy. Easy to say when you have money. You're right. That was naive. Charlotte stood. I should go. But as she moved toward the door, Jude spoke. Charlotte, she turned. Thank you. For the groceries, for the sink, for caring. Most people look right through me. I see you, Charlotte said. I really do. Their eyes held for a moment too long. Then Maya whimpered and the moment broke. Charlotte let herself out, closing the door softly. In the hallway, she leaned against the wall, heart pounding. What was she doing? This was insane. But her phone buzzed a text about tomorrow's schedule, and Charlotte felt her old life pressing down. She looked back at the closed door. Inside was poverty and struggle. But also something real. Something she'd been searching for without knowing it. Charlotte returned 3 days later. She told herself it was just to check on the girls, to make sure the formula was lasting, to see if they needed anything else. But as she climbed those broken stairs again, she knew she was lying to herself. She knocked. This time Jude opened the door faster, his expression less suspicious almost. Expectant. I brought books, Charlotte said, holding up a bag. Children's books. I thought maybe Maya and Zoe. They're 6 months old. I know. But studies show that reading to babies helps with language development. And there are these sensory toys that… Jude smiled, actually smiled, and stepped aside. Come in. The apartment looked the same, but something felt different. Warmer, maybe. Or perhaps Charlotte just felt more welcome. The girls were awake, lying on their blankets, making soft cooing sounds. When Charlotte knelt beside them, Maya's eyes tracked her face with interest. Hey there, sweet girl, Charlotte whispered. Remember me? They remember, Jude said, settling onto his chair. You're the lady with the soft voice who fixed our sink. Is it still working? Perfectly. Haven't had to empty that bucket once. Charlotte pulled out the books, arranging them on the floor. Bright colors, simple shapes, textured pages. Then the toys, a soft rattle, a crinkle book, a small stuffed elephant. These are too much, Jude said, but his voice lacked conviction. They're educational. They're expensive. They're gifts. Can't you just accept them? Jude looked at her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Thank you. Charlotte picked up one of the books, settling cross-legged on the floor beside Maya. She opened to the first page, a big yellow sun. Look, Maya, sun. Can you say sun? Maya gurgled, reaching for the page. She's trying. Charlotte laughed. Over the next hour, Charlotte read through all 3 books twice. Jude watched from his chair, saying nothing, but his expression had softened into something Charlotte couldn't quite name. When the girls started getting fussy, Jude prepared their bottles. Charlotte watched his routine again, still amazed by his efficiency. Can I try? She asked suddenly. Jude paused. Try what? Feeding them. I don't know how. You've never fed a baby. I've never even held one properly. Jude stared at her like she'd just admitted to never breathing air. You're serious? My childhood wasn't exactly hands-on. We had nannies for everything. When my brother was born, I wasn't allowed to hold him. Father said children should be handled by professionals. Something dark flickered across Jude's face. That's sad. I know. Now I do anyway. Jude stood, motioning her over. Okay, sit on the mattress back against the wall. You need support. Charlotte did as instructed. Jude carefully lifted Zoe, then paused. You sure about this? She's squirmy. I'm sure. He placed Zoe in Charlotte's arms, adjusting her position. The weight was strange, solid, but fragile. Zoe looked up at her with wide eyes. Support her head, Jude said, guiding Charlotte's hand. Always support the head. Now bring the bottle to her mouth, not her mouth to the bottle. Charlotte offered the bottle. Zoe latched on immediately, her little hands reaching up. Oh my God, Charlotte breathed. She's so strong. She's hungry. That's survival instinct. Charlotte looked down at Zoe, at her perfect tiny features, her impossibly small fingers wrapped around the bottle. Something swelled in Charlotte's chest, overwhelming and unexpected. I don't understand how anyone could abandon these girls, she whispered. Sarah's family. How could they just walk away? Jude settled beside her, with Maya positioning his daughter with practiced ease. Fear, prejudice, pride, take your pick. But their family? Not to them. To them, I contaminated their daughter. Made her impure or some bullshit like that. His voice was bitter. Sarah told me once that her father said he'd rather have no grandchildren than ones that looked like me. Charlotte felt anger flash hot through her. That's disgusting. That's reality for a lot of people. They sat in silence, feeding the babies. Charlotte studied Zoe's face, memorizing every detail. When the bottle was empty, Jude showed her how to burp properly. Pat gently, just enough pressure. Listen for the burp. Charlotte followed his instructions. When Zoe finally burped, she felt absurdly victorious. I did it, Jude laughed. You're a natural. Hardly, but I'm learning. After both girls were fed and drowsy, Jude took Maya to put her in the crib. Charlotte continued holding Zoe, rocking gently. You can put her down, Jude said. Not yet. Is that okay? Yeah, that's okay. Charlotte hummed softly some melody she'd heard as a child. Zoe's eyes fluttered, fighting sleep. Her small hand gripped Charlotte's finger with surprising strength. My father used to say that emotions were weaknesses, Charlotte said quietly, that successful people can't afford to feel too much. I believed him for so long, structured my whole life around being strong, being untouchable. And now I'm holding a 6-month-old and feeling more than I have in years. I don't know if that makes me weak or finally human. Jude sat beside her again, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. Feeling things doesn't make you weak. Refusing to feel that's weakness. Charlotte looked at him. Really looked. The exhaustion lines around his eyes. The worry permanently etched into his forehead. But also the gentleness in his expression when he looked at his daughters. You're remarkable, you know that, she said. I'm surviving. That's different. No, you're thriving. Under impossible circumstances, you're raising 2 beautiful, healthy daughters. You're keeping this place spotless. You're maintaining dignity when the world keeps trying to strip it away. That's not just survival. That's strength. Jude's throat worked. He looked away, but not before Charlotte saw his eyes glisten. Nobody's ever said that to me before, he said roughly. Then nobody's been paying attention. Zoe had fallen asleep, her breathing deep and even. Charlotte carefully stood, moving to the crib. She laid Zoe down beside Maya, both girls sleeping peacefully. When Charlotte turned around, Jude was standing close, watching her with an intensity that made her breath catch. Why do you keep coming back? He asked. Really? No polite excuses. Charlotte considered lying, considered deflecting. But something about this moment, this space they'd created together, demanded honesty. Because being here feels like coming home, she said. My penthouse is 5,000 square feet of designer furniture and perfect temperature control, but it's empty, cold. This place, she gestured around the cramped apartment, this place has life, love, purpose, things I didn't even realize I was missing. Charlotte, I know it sounds crazy. I know we barely know each other, but something about you, about the girls, about all of this. It makes sense in a way nothing else in my life does. Jude stepped closer. They were inches apart now. Charlotte could feel the heat radiating from his body, could see the conflict warring in his eyes. I can't give you anything, he said. I'm broke. I live in a slum. I'm a single father with no prospects and a mountain of debt. I don't want you to give me anything. I want to be here, with you, with Maya and Zoe. Is that allowed? Before Jude could answer, Charlotte's phone buzzed, then buzzed again, and again. She pulled it out, seeing multiple texts from Jennifer. Urgent, your father is looking for you. Board meeting, moved up to tomorrow morning. Where are you? Mr. Whitmore is furious. There, quote, S, a photographer outside your building. Someone leaked info about your charity work. Charlotte's blood went cold. Oh no. What's wrong? Someone told the press I've been coming here. To the warehouse district. They're speculating about what I'm doing. Drug slumming. That's usually what rich people come here for. I need to call Jennifer. Charlotte stepped toward the door, then paused. I'm sorry. I have to deal with this. Go. It's fine. But it wasn't fine. Charlotte could see the walls going back up in Jude's expression, the protective distance returning. She left quickly, already dialing Jennifer's number. Where have you been? Jennifer demanded. Your father is losing his mind. He's seen the photos. What photos? You. Entering a building in the warehouse district. Multiple times. The tabloids are running stories about possible substance abuse or... That's ridiculous. Is it? Because you've been disappearing for hours with no explanation. Your father wants to see you immediately. Charlotte reached her car, sliding into the driver's seat. Through the rear-view mirror, she could see Jude's building. Miss Whitmore, I have to be honest with you, Jennifer said, her voice careful. People are talking about you and whoever you're visiting. The optics aren't good. The optics? A woman in your position spending time with someone in that neighborhood, someone who is, well, say it, Jennifer, someone who doesn't fit your social circle. I'm just trying to protect you. Charlotte's grip tightened on the steering wheel. Protect me from what exactly? From making choices that could damage your reputation. Your father built this company over 40 years. Your associations reflect on... Jennifer, you're fired. Silence. Ms. Whitmore, effective immediately. Clean out your desk. I'll have HR send your severance. You can't be serious. I was just trying to help. You were trying to tell me who I can and can't spend time with based on their income and race. That's not help. That's prejudice. And I don't employ bigots. Charlotte ended the call. Her hands were shaking. She'd just fired someone who'd worked for her for 5 years. Someone her father had personally recommended it. The fallout would be massive. But as Charlotte looked back at that crumbling building at the window to apartment 3C, she realized something. She didn't care. For the first time in her life, she was choosing what mattered over what looked good. And it felt terrifying and liberating all at once. Charlotte spent the next 2 days deflecting her father's calls and preparing for the biggest merger in Whitmore Industries history. The Japanese conglomerate deal would expand their market reach across Asia, a $40 billion agreement that had taken 18 months to negotiate. She sat in her office on the 50th floor, reviewing contracts, but her mind kept drifting to apartment 3C. To Jude's smile when she'd successfully burped Zoe, to Maya's tiny fingers wrapped around hers, to the feeling of belonging somewhere that made no logical sense. Her new assistant Marcus's nephew David knocked on her door. Miss Whitmore, the delegation from Tokyo, will arrive in 20 minutes. Conference room A is ready. Thank you, David. Charlotte straightened her jacket, gathering her files. This was it. The moment that would define her career, cement her position as CEO, prove to her father that she was more than just his disappointment of a daughter. Her phone buzzed. She almost ignored it, but something made her look. Unknown number. She answered. Hello? Charlotte. Jude's voice came through, broken, panicked, barely recognizable. Charlotte, I need help. Please. I don't know what to do. Charlotte's blood turned to ice. What's wrong? It's Zoe. She's burning up. Her temperature is 105. I gave her medicine, but it's not working. She's shaking. Oh God, she's shaking so bad. In the background, Charlotte could hear Zoe's cries, weak, distressed, nothing like the healthy baby she'd held just days ago. Jude, listen to me. You need to get her to a hospital now. I don't have a car. I called an ambulance, but they said it could be 45 minutes. Charlotte, I don't think she has 45 minutes. She just had a seizure. A seizure. What do I do? Charlotte was already moving, grabbing her purse, her keys. I'm coming. Right now. Hold on. Charlotte, I can't lose her. I can't lose another person I love. Please. You won't. I promise. Keep her cool. Lukewarm water on a cloth on her forehead and neck. I'm 15 minutes away. She ended the call and ran. David appeared in the hallway, confused. Miss Whitmore, the meeting. Cancel it. Cancel it, ma'am. The Tokyo delegation is already in the building. Your father is waiting in the conference room. We can't just... I said cancel it. Charlotte jabbed the elevator button repeatedly. Reschedule for next week. But they flew in specifically for today. This deal has been in the works for... I don't care. The elevator doors opened. Charlotte stepped in, then turned back to David. Tell them there's a family emergency. Tell them anything. Just handle it. The doors closed on David's shocked face. Charlotte's hands shook as she descended. Family emergency. That's what she'd said. And it was true, wasn't it? Somewhere along the way, Jude and his daughters had become family. More family than her own father had ever been. The elevator seemed to move in slow motion. When it finally reached the parking garage, Charlotte sprinted to her car. A sleek Mercedes she barely drove because Marcus usually handled transportation. She hadn't driven herself in months. She got behind the wheel, started the engine, and peeled out of the garage with a screech of tires. The city traffic was nightmare. Lunch hour. Every street clogged with cars. Charlotte laid on the horn, weaving between lanes, ignoring red lights when she could safely run them. Her phone rang. Her father. She declined the call. It rang again immediately. She declined again. A text came through. Where are you? The Japanese are here. Charlotte threw her phone onto the passenger seat and focused on driving. 15 minutes became 20, then 25. Every second felt like an eternity. She pictured Zoe's tiny body convulsing, her eyes rolling back, her life slipping away while Charlotte sat trapped in traffic. Move! She screamed at the car in front of her. Finally, she reached the warehouse district. She abandoned her car in a loading zone, not bothering to lock it, and ran into the building. 3rd floor. Her lungs burned. She'd worn heels to the office, 3-inch Louboutins that were now instruments of torture. She kicked them off halfway up the 2nd flight of stairs. "Jude!" she shouted, pounding on the door of 3C. The door flew open. Jude stood there barefoot, wild-eyed, holding Zoe wrapped in a damp towel. Maya was strapped to his back, crying. Zoe looked terrifyingly still, her skin flushed red, her breathing rapid and shallow. "Thank God," Jude breathed. "Thank God you're here. Come on, my car's outside." They ran together, Jude taking the stairs 2 at a time, despite carrying both girls. Charlotte grabbed her discarded shoes but didn't bother putting them back on. At the car, Charlotte opened the back door. "Get in. Hold her, I'm driving." Jude climbed in, cradling Zoe against his chest, adjusting Maya's sling. Charlotte got behind the wheel and floored it. "Where's the nearest hospital?" she demanded. "County General." "But Charlotte, that place, the wait times are hours. By the time they see her..." "We're not going to County General." Charlotte made a sharp turn, heading toward the opposite side of the city, toward money, toward privilege, toward the private hospital where board members and celebrities got treated. "St. Catherine S.," she said. "Best pediatric emergency department in the state." "Charlotte, I can't afford..." "I can. Hold on." She drove like her life depended on it, through red lights, across double yellow lines. Someone honked. Someone else shouted. Charlotte didn't care. In the back seat, Jude's voice was a constant stream of desperate reassurance. "Stay with me, baby girl. Stay with Daddy. You're going to be okay. Charlotte's taking us somewhere good, somewhere they can help. Just hold on." Zoe's cry had faded to weak whimpers. Charlotte, "S foot pressed harder on the accelerator." St. Catherine's Medical Center appeared ahead, all gleaming glass and manicured lawns. Charlotte pulled directly into the emergency bay, ignoring the no parking signs. She was out of the car before it fully stopped, yanking open Jude's door. "Come with me." Inside, the emergency room looked more like a hotel lobby. Soft lighting, comfortable chairs, a receptionist behind a polished desk who looked up with a practiced smile. "Welcome to St. Catherine S. Do you have an appointment?" "No. This baby needs immediate care. She's had a seizure and has a fever of 105. The receptionist's smile faltered. "I see. If you'll just fill out these forms." "We don't have time for forms. Get a doctor, now." "Ma'am, I understand your concern, but we have protocols. All patients must be registered before..." Charlotte leaned across the desk, her voice dropping to something cold and sharp. "I am Charlotte Whitmore. My family has donated $15 million to this hospital. My name is on a wing upstairs. If you don't get a pediatric emergency physician in front of me in the next 60 seconds, I will have you fired, and this hospital will lose funding so fast your head will spin. Do you understand?" The receptionist's face went pale. "Yes, Miss Whitmore. Right away." She grabbed a phone, speaking urgently. Within 30 seconds, a doctor appeared, already snapping on gloves. "I'm Dr. Patterson. What do we have?" Jude stepped forward, his voice shaking. "My daughter, 6 months old. Fever started this morning. It got high fast. 105. She had a seizure about 40 minutes ago. She's been lethargic since then. Dr. Patterson was already examining Zoe, checking her pupils, her breathing, feeling her neck. Febrile seizure. We need to get her temperature down and run tests. Possible meningitis. Come with me. He led them through double doors into a treatment area. Nurses appeared from nowhere, setting up equipment, attaching monitors. Someone took Zoe from Jude's arms and placed her on a pediatric gurney. "Sir, you'll need to wait outside while we examine her," a nurse said. "No, I'm staying with my daughter." "Hospital policy." "He stays," Charlotte said. Her voice carried an authority that made the nurse step back. "Both of us stay." The nurse looked to Dr. Patterson, who nodded. "Let them stay, but back against the wall, out of our way." For the next 20 minutes, Charlotte and Jude stood pressed against the wall, watching as the medical team worked on Zoe. IV lines, blood draws, a lumbar puncture that made Jude sob. Maya had finally quieted against his back, exhausted from crying. Charlotte reached over and took Jude's hand. He squeezed so hard it hurt. "She's strong," Charlotte whispered, "just like her father." "I can't lose her," Jude said, tears streaming down his face. "Charlotte, I can't." "You won't. Look at all these doctors, the equipment. She's getting the best care possible." Dr. Patterson looked up. "Her fever's coming down. The seizure appears to have been febrile, caused by the high temperature. We're running tests for bacterial infections, but my initial assessment is that this is a severe viral infection. We're going to admit her for observation and IV fluids." "She'll be okay," Jude's voice broke. "I believe so, but we need to monitor her closely for the next 48 hours. Jude's legs gave out. He would have collapsed if Charlotte hadn't caught him. She guided him to a chair, helping him sit, while Maya stirred against his back. "Thank you," Jude breathed. "Thank you, God. Thank you." Charlotte's phone had been buzzing non-stop in her purse. She'd been ignoring it. Now, as the immediate crisis passed, she pulled it out. 47 missed calls. Most from her father, several from board members, a dozen texts, each more urgent than the last. "Where are you? The deal is falling apart. The Japanese are threatening to walk. Your father is furious." And finally from her father himself, "Conference room, now, or you're done." Charlotte stared at the messages, feeling strangely detached. That world, the boardroom, the merger, her father's approval, it all seemed impossibly distant, irrelevant. Here in this hospital, holding the hand of a man she'd known for barely 2 weeks, waiting to hear if a 6-month-old baby would survive, this felt real. Her phone rang. Her father. Charlotte answered. "Where the hell are you?" Richard Whitmore's voice was ice and fury. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" The Japanese delegation walked out. 18 months of work destroyed because you decided to play hooky. What could possibly be more important than a child's life? Charlotte said quietly. "What? A 6-month-old baby just had a seizure. I'm at the hospital. That's more important than your merger." "What baby, Charlotte? What are you talking about?" "It doesn't matter. I'm where I need to be." "You're throwing away your career, your future. For what? Some random child?" Charlotte looked at Zoe, now resting more comfortably, her color improving. She looked at Maya, asleep against Jude's back. She looked at Jude, his eyes closed, his lips moving in silent prayer. "Not random," she said. "Never random. Charlotte, listen to me very carefully. You walk away from this deal and you're finished at Whitmore Industries. I will remove you as CEO. I will cut you out of the will. You will have nothing. Then I'll have nothing. You're not thinking clearly. This is some kind of breakdown. When you come to your senses, I've never been more clear-headed in my life." Charlotte's voice was steady, now certain. "Your money, your company, your approval, none of it matters as much as being here right now. You taught me that success meant sacrifice. You were right. I'm just sacrificing different things than you expected. You're making a mistake." "Maybe, but it's my mistake to make. Don't bother coming back to the office." "I won't." Charlotte ended the call. Jude was staring at her, eyes wide. "Charlotte, what did you just do?" "What I should have done a long time ago. But your job, your father, you just made a choice, the right one." Charlotte sat beside him, taking his hand again. "Money can't buy what matters. I'm finally learning that. I'm not worth losing everything for." "Yes, you are. You and Maya and Zoe. You're worth everything." They sat together in the hallway outside Zoe's room, hands clasped as the hospital bustled around them. Charlotte's expensive suit was wrinkled. Her feet were bare and dirty. Her career was in ruins. And somehow she'd never felt more free. Zoe stabilized after 36 hours in the hospital. The test came back negative for meningitis, just a severe viral infection her body had fought off with medical help. Charlotte stayed the entire time, leaving only to buy Jude clean clothes and food. On the third morning, as they prepared for discharge, a hospital administrator appeared with paperwork. "The total comes to $48,000, she said apologetically. "Insurance won't cover most since Mr. Harris doesn't have coverage." "Bill it to me," Charlotte said. "Charlotte Whitmore, you have my information." After she left, Jude turned to Charlotte. $48,000. I can't let you." "It's done. Don't argue." "How am I supposed to pay you back?" "You're not. That's not how this works." Before he could respond, his phone rang. Unknown number. "Is this Jude Harris?" A man's voice, smooth and cold. "Yeah." "Who's this?" "Richard Whitmore. I believe you know my daughter. We need to have a conversation, man to man, today. My estate, 3 o'clock. I'll send a car." "I don't think." "It wasn't a request, Mr. Harris." 3 o'clock. "Come alone." The line went dead. Charlotte Quote's face went pale. "No, you're not going anywhere near him." "He knows where I live, Charlotte. He knows about the girls. If I don't go, who knows what he'll do? He's just trying to intimidate you." "Then let him try. I need to face him." At 2:45, a black town car arrived. Jude had left Maya and Zoe with his neighbor, Mrs. Chen. He wore his cleanest jeans and the button-down shirt Charlotte had bought. The drive took 25 minutes, moving from decay to opulence. The Whitmore estate sat behind iron gates, massive and cold, more museum than home. A butler led Jude through rooms that could fit his entire apartment building. Everything screamed money and power. Richard Whitmore waited in his study, standing by a window overlooking acres of grounds. Tall, silver-haired, wearing a suit worth more than Jude made in a year. He didn't turn when Jude entered. "Mr. Harris, thank you for coming. Didn't feel like I had a choice." "Smart man." Richard finally turned, scanning Jude with undisguised distaste. "Please sit." Jude remained standing. "I'm fine here." "Suit yourself." Richard moved to his desk, pulling out a checkbook. "Let's not waste time. I know who you are. I know about your daughters. I know you've been manipulating my daughter with some sob story about poverty and dead wives." Jude's fists clenched. "I haven't manipulated anyone." "Please." A single father, 2 babies living in squalor. You saw Charlotte coming from miles away. Saw a rich, lonely woman who could solve all your problems. That's not what happened, isn't it? Richard picked up a pen. "But I'm here to make this simple. You walk away from Charlotte today permanently, and I'll make your financial problems disappear." He began writing. When finished, he held up the check. $1 million. Jude stared at the zeros, his mind struggling to process the amount. $1 million, Richard said. "Enough to buy a house, start a business, put your daughters through college. All you do is disappear. Move to another city, change your number, never contact Charlotte again. You're trying to buy me off. I'm offering you a way to give your daughters the life they deserve without using my daughter as a meal ticket." "Charlotte's not my meal ticket." "Then what is she?" Richard's voice turned sharp. "You barely know her. Different worlds, different races, different everything. What is this love?" He laughed bitterly. "Love doesn't pay bills, Mr. Harris. Love doesn't survive reality." Jude stepped closer. "We're from different worlds, but that doesn't mean we can't build something real." "Real? You mean her paying for everything while you play house? How long before you resent her? How long before she realizes she's supporting a man who can't provide?" The words hit harder than Jude wanted to admit. He'd thought the same things at night. Richard saw the hesitation. "Think about your daughters. This money could change their lives. Give them opportunities you never had. Isn't that what fathers do, sacrifice for their children?" Jude looked at the check again. $1 million. Maya and Zoe in a real home, with heat, with food, with a future that didn't involve scraping by. All he had to do was walk away from Charlotte. He reached out slowly. Taking the check. Richard smiled, victorious. "Smart choice. I'll have my lawyer draw up a non-disclosure agreement." Jude held the check up to the light, examining it. Then he began tearing it. Slowly, deliberately, he ripped it in half. Then quarters, then small pieces that fluttered to the carpet like confetti. Richard's face went purple. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" "Something I should have done the second you insulted me and my daughters." Jude's voice was steady. "You think everyone has a price, that you can buy anything, control anyone. But you're wrong. You're a fool." Walking away from $1 million for what, some fantasy with my daughter? For self-respect. For showing my daughters that some things can't be bought. For proving not everyone is for sale. You'll regret this. Maybe. But at least I'll be able to look at myself in the mirror. The study door burst open. Charlotte stood there breathing hard. Her eyes went to the torn check, then to her father, then to Jude. "What did you do?" she asked Jude, voice full of wonder. "Turn down your father's generous offer?" Charlotte's face broke into a smile. She crossed the room and kissed Jude right there in front of her father. Richard S. voice cut through. "Charlotte, this is ridiculous. You're throwing away everything for this man." Charlotte turned, keeping Jude's hand in hers. "Not throwing away. Choosing. There's a difference. Choosing poverty, choosing struggle. I raised you better than this. No, you raised me to value money over people, to see everyone as assets or liabilities, to believe wealth equals worth." Charlotte's voice was calm but firm. "You were wrong. I built an empire so you'd never have to worry, and you're spitting on that. You built an empire and forgot to build a family. When Michael died, you went back to work the next day. You told me grief was weakness. You taught me to be cold, calculating, empty. I was for years, until I met Jude. He's using you. He just turned down $1 million. How is that using me?" Richard had no answer. Charlotte walked to her father's desk. She pulled off her Whitmore Industries ID badge and set it down. "I'm done," she said. "I resign as CEO. I renounce my position on the board. I want nothing from you or the company. You're insane. I'm free. For the first time, I'm choosing what I want instead of what you want for me. And what do you want, to live in a slum, to struggle for every penny? You won't last a month." "Then I won't last a month. But I'll be happy, surrounded by people who care about me, not my bank account." Charlotte moved to the bookshelf, picking up a photo of her and Michael as children. "You know what's sad?" she said quietly. "You have all this money, all this power, all this success, but you're the poorest person I've ever met. You have nothing that matters. No love, no connection, no purpose beyond accumulating more. You're rich in everything except the things that count." Richard's face had gone ashen. "Get out of my house." "Gladly." Charlotte turned to Jude. "Let's go home." They walked out together through the museum rooms, past the shocked butler, into sunshine that felt warmer than it should. The town car was waiting. Charlotte waved it away and called a regular taxi. While they waited, Jude spoke quietly. "Charlotte, you just gave up everything. Your job, your inheritance, your family. That's too much." "No, it's not. But what if this doesn't work? What if we're too different?" Charlotte put her finger on his lips. "Stop. I didn't lose everything in there. I lost money and power and my father's approval, things I never really had meaningfully, but I found something real. You, Maya, and Zoe. A reason to wake up that isn't about profit margins. I can't give you the life you're used to. I don't want that life. That life was hollow. This is real. But how will we? We'll figure it out. Together. I have savings, skills. I can work. We'll find a better apartment. I'll get a job. We'll build something from scratch." Jude pulled her close. "I've never met anyone like you." "Good, because you're stuck with me now." The taxi arrived. They climbed in, leaving the estate behind. As they drove away, Charlotte looked back once at the massive house that had never felt like home. She didn't feel sad. She felt free. Ready to start building a life that mattered. 2 weeks passed in a blur of change and adjustment. Charlotte sold some of her stocks and jewelry, converting assets her father couldn't touch into cash. She found work as an independent business consultant, taking on smaller clients who appreciated her expertise without the corporate baggage. The pay was a fraction of what she'd made before, but it was honest work that let her sleep at night. Jude landed a job at a community bike repair shop, his skills with Sarah's old bicycle translating into steady employment. The owner, an older man named Frank, didn't care about Jude's past or his circumstances, only that he showed up on time and knew his way around a wrench. They'd been looking at apartments together, trying to find something affordable that wasn't falling apart. Everything in their budget was either too small, too dangerous, or too far from Jude's new job. On a Saturday morning, Charlotte picked up Jude and the girls in her car. She'd traded the Mercedes for a practical Honda Civic that didn't scream wealth. "Where are we going?" Jude asked, settling Maya and Zoe into the car seats Charlotte had bought. "Looking at another place. I found a listing last night. In our budget. Just trust me." They drove through neighborhoods that gradually improved, moving from industrial zones to residential areas with actual trees. Charlotte pulled up in front of a 3-story building near Riverside Park. Brick exterior, recently renovated flower boxes in the windows. "Charlotte, this looks expensive. Come see it first." She led them inside to the second floor, Unit 2B. Charlotte pulled out a key. She already had a key and opened the door. Jude stepped inside and stopped breathing. The apartment was flooded with natural light from large windows, hardwood floors freshly refinished, a real kitchen with full-sized appliances, 2 bedrooms, actual separate bedrooms with doors that closed, a living room big enough for the girls to play, clean white walls, modern fixtures, heat that worked. "Charlotte, we can't afford this." "I can. And before you argue, let me finish." Charlotte set down her purse, facing him. "I put down 6 months' rent, non-refundable. The lease is in both our names. This is happening whether you like it or not." "That's not fair. You're making decisions about our life without our life." "You said our life." Charlotte smiled. "That's the first time you've said that." Jude realized she was right. He'd been so careful to maintain distance, to not assume, to protect himself from hoping for too much. "I just don't want you to think you have to take care of us," he said quietly. "I don't have to. I want to. There's a difference." Charlotte took his hands. "Jude, you gave up $1 million for your dignity. Let me give you this, please." Maya squirmed in Jude's arms, reaching toward the sunlight streaming through the windows. Zoe cooed from her carrier, happy sounds echoing in the empty space. "The girls like it," Charlotte said. "Of course they like it. It's a palace compared to apartment 3C. "Then let's make it home." Jude walked through the space, slowly running his hand along the walls, testing the faucets, opening cabinets. In the smaller bedroom, someone had already installed safety gates and outlet covers. The windows had child locks. "You planned this," he said. "I might have measured the rooms and ordered a few things in advance." In the larger bedroom, there was already a crib, a real crib, sturdy and new, with a mobile hanging above it, featuring little birds and clouds. Beside it sat a changing table stocked with diapers and supplies. Jude's throat tightened. "Charlotte, keep looking. There's more." He walked back to the living room, and that's when he saw it. On the main wall, mounted like a piece of art in a gallery, was Sarah's bicycle. But it had been transformed. Someone had carefully restored it. The rust was gone. The frame had been repainted a deep, rich blue that made it look almost new. But here and there, strategic details had been left untouched: the worn hand grips, the faded seat, the original decals. And in certain spots, thin lines of gold leaf had been applied, catching the light, making the old bike shimmer like something precious. It hung horizontally, suspended by nearly invisible mounts, seeming to float against the white wall. A spotlight above it made the gold details glow. Jude couldn't speak. He just stood there, staring at the bicycle that had been his last connection to Sarah, now transformed into something that honored both its history and its meaning. Charlotte came to stand beside him. "I took it while you were at the hospital with Zoe. I hope you're not angry. I found a restoration artist who specializes in vintage bikes. I told him the story about Sarah, about how you tried to sell it, about how we met. He said he wanted to help make it beautiful again." "The gold," Jude's voice cracked. "He said every scar tells a story, so he highlighted them instead of hiding them, made them part of the beauty." Charlotte slipped her hand into his. "It reminds me that love begins with sacrifice. You were willing to sell your last piece of Sarah to feed your daughters. That's when I knew what real love looked like." Jude pulled her close, burying his face in her hair. "I don't deserve you." "Yes, you do. You deserve everything good in this world." They stood together looking at the bicycle. Sunlight moved across it, making the gold shimmer and shift. It was no longer just a reminder of loss. It had become a symbol of survival, of transformation, of finding beauty in broken things. Maya reached out toward the bicycle, making grabbing motions. "Bike," she said, or something close to it. Her first word that wasn't mama or dada. Jude laughed through his tears. "Yeah, baby girl, that's a bike. That was your mother's bike. And now it's a family heirloom," Charlotte added, "something to pass down to Maya and Zoe, to tell them about their mother, about how strong their father is, about how love can turn rust into gold." Jude set Maya down carefully. She immediately began crawling toward the windows, fascinated by the light and the view of the park below. Zoe fussed to be released from her carrier. Charlotte freed Zoe, who promptly crawled after her sister. The two babies explored the empty living room with delight, their voices echoing off the walls. "They're going to be so loud in here," Jude said. "Good. This place needs life, needs laughter, needs everything you three bring." Jude turned to face Charlotte fully. He took her face in his hands, looking at her with an intensity that made her breath catch. "I can't give you what your father could," he said. "I can't give you mansions or private jets or society connections. I'm still broke. I'm still figuring out how to be a single parent. I still have more problems than solutions." "I know, but I can promise you something. I will protect you. Not with money or power, but with everything I am. I will stand beside you when things get hard. I will never take you for granted. I will wake up every day grateful that you chose us, that you chose this life over the easy one." "This is the easy one," Charlotte whispered. "Everything before was hard. This is the first time anything has felt simple and right." "Then let me make another promise. I will work every day to deserve this, to deserve you. To build something with you that matters more than bank accounts or last names. To create a family, a real family built on love instead of obligation." "We're already a family, Jude." "I know, but I want to make it official. Not now. I don't even have a ring, and I want to do this properly. But someday, when I've saved enough, when I can give you the proposal you deserve." Charlotte kissed him, cutting off his words. When she pulled back, she was smiling through tears. "I don't need a ring. I don't need a fancy proposal. I just need you to keep being exactly who you are." Maya had pulled herself up using the windowsill, standing on wobbly legs. Zoe crawled over to join her, and they both pressed their faces against the glass, looking out at the park where other children were playing. "They're standing," Jude breathed. "Maya's standing on her own." Charlotte grabbed her phone, snapping photos. "First steps are coming soon." "In our new home." "Our home," Charlotte repeated. "I like the sound of that." They spent the rest of the day planning where furniture would go, measuring spaces, talking about colors for the walls. Charlotte had arranged for a delivery truck to bring basics that afternoon: a couch, a table, beds, everything they needed to start fresh. As the sun began to set, painting the living room in shades of gold and orange, Jude stood by the bicycle again. He reached up, touching the frame, gently remembering Sarah's laugh, her smile, her belief in him, even when he didn't believe in himself. "Thank you," he whispered to her memory, "for the girls, for teaching me what love means, for this bicycle that brought Charlotte into my life." Charlotte came to stand beside him, leaning her head on his shoulder. Maya and Zoe had tired themselves out and were sleeping in their new crib, peaceful and safe. "You think she'd approve?" Jude asked. "Of us, of this?" "I think she'd be grateful, knowing her daughters have someone who loves them, knowing you found happiness again." "I never thought I would. After she died, I couldn't imagine feeling anything but pain." And now, Jude looked around their new home, at the bicycle catching the last light of day, at Charlotte beside him, at his daughters sleeping soundly in the next room. "Now I feel hope, real hope. For the first time since Sarah died, I can picture a future that doesn't feel like survival. That feels like living." Charlotte squeezed his hand. "Then let's live, really live, together." Outside, the city hummed with its usual chaos. But here, in apartment 2B, in this space they would make their own, everything was quiet and perfect and exactly right. The bicycle hung on the wall, rust transformed to gold, a reminder that broken things can become beautiful again. That love can heal the deepest wounds. That sometimes losing everything means finding what truly matters. Sunday morning sunlight poured through the windows of apartment 2B, warming the hardwood floors that now bore scuff marks from two active one-year-olds learning to walk. Jude stood in the kitchen flipping pancakes. The smell of coffee and maple syrup filled the air. He'd gotten good at this, the domestic routine weekend breakfasts, the simple pleasure of cooking for people he loved. In the living room, Charlotte sat cross-legged on the floor, building a tower of soft blocks with Maya and Zoe. Both girls had grown stronger, healthier, their cheeks fuller, their eyes brighter. They wore matching purple overalls, their hair pulled into tiny pigtails. "Higher," Maya demanded, pointing at the tower. "Okay, one more block." Charlotte carefully placed another block on top. The tower wobbled but held. Zoe clapped her hands, delighted. Then she knocked the whole thing over. Blocks scattered across the floor. Maya laughed, a pure sound that made Charlotte's heart swell. 6 months had changed everything. Jude's job at the bike repair shop had lasted 3 months before Frank offered him a partnership. Together, they'd expanded the business, adding custom restoration for vintage bicycles. Word spread quickly, the shop that could transform rusted relics into art. Jude had a gift for it. Every bicycle told a story, and he honored each one the way Charlotte's restoration artist had honored Sarah's bike. The business was small, but growing, providing steady income and purpose. Charlotte had built her consulting practice deliberately small. 3 clients, all nonprofits working on housing and poverty issues. She made a quarter of what she used to earn, but she came home energized instead of empty. She'd found her calling, using business expertise to help organizations that actually helped people. She worked from home 3 days a week, which meant more time with the girls, watching them grow and become little people with personalities. Breakfast is ready. Jude called Dot. Charlotte scooped up Zoe, while Maya toddled toward the kitchen on unsteady legs, one hand gripping the wall. She was getting braver every day. They gathered around the small dining table Jude had refinished himself. He'd cut the pancakes into small pieces for the girls, arranging them with sliced bananas and a tiny drizzle of syrup. "You spoil them," Charlotte said, smiling. "They deserve it, and so do you." Jude set a plate in front of her heart-shaped pancakes. They ate together, the girls making the mess. Toddlers do, syrup on their faces, crumbs everywhere. Charlotte wouldn't have traded this chaos for all the elegant dinners of her old life. After breakfast, while Jude cleaned up, Charlotte took the girls to the living room. She settled onto the couch and both girls climbed up beside her. Charlotte picked up a picture book opening to the first page. Once upon a time, there was a bicycle. She'd written it herself, a simple story about a bicycle that carried love through hard times. The illustrations showed a bike transforming from rusty to golden, carrying a family toward happiness. Maya pointed at the pictures, recognizing elements of their story. Zoe leaned against Charlotte's shoulder thumb, in mouth eyes growing heavy. These quiet moments were Charlotte's favorite, the weight of the girls against her, their trust so freely given. Maya slid off the couch and crawled toward the bicycle on the wall. She'd been fascinated by it since they moved in, often standing below it, reaching up. "Bike," Maya said clearly. "Mama bike." Charlotte's breath caught. Maya had been calling her Lala for months, unable to manage Charlotte. But this was different. Maya turned around, crawling back with determined focus. When she reached the couch, she pulled herself up using Charlotte's knees, then looked directly into her eyes. "Mama," Maya said, patting Charlotte's face with sticky hands. "Mama." The word hit Charlotte like a wave. Tears spilled down her cheeks. She'd wondered how she'd feel when this happened. Would it seem like she was replacing Sarah? But looking into Maya's trusting eyes, feeling Zoe snuggle closer, Charlotte felt only love. Pure, overwhelming love. "Oh, baby girl. Oh, Maya." Jude appeared in the doorway, dish towel in hand. He'd heard. His own eyes were wet. Maya looked worried. "Mama sad." "No, sweetheart. Mama's happy. So happy." Zoe reached up and patted Charlotte's other cheek. "Mama," she echoed. "Mama cry." "Happy tears," Charlotte managed. Jude crossed the room and wrapped his arms around all 3 of them. They stayed like that for a long moment while sunlight streamed through the windows and the bicycle watched from its place on the wall. When they separated, Jude kissed Charlotte's forehead. "Sarah would be grateful," he whispered, "knowing they have you. I'll never try to replace her." "You're not replacing her. You're adding to their story, giving them more love, not less." That's what she would have wanted. The girls had already moved on, back to playing with blocks. Their resilience, their capacity for joy, it amazed Charlotte daily. She stood and walked to the window, looking out at the park below. Sunday morning meant families everywhere, parents pushing strollers, kids on bikes, the ordinary, beautiful chaos of life. A man caught her attention. He stood by a bench, thin and tired, with a small child sleeping in a worn stroller. The man was eating from a paper bag, carefully saving half, probably for later. His clothes were shabby, his shoes held together with tape. Charlotte recognized that look. The one Jude had worn when she first met him, desperate and determined. She felt Jude come up behind her, his arms circling her waist. "You see him?" she asked. "I see him. We should help." "I was thinking the same thing." Charlotte turned to face him. "I was thinking we could start something. A program to help single parents get back on their feet. Nothing big, just us doing what we can." Jude smiled. "You want to change the world. I want to change someone's world, the way you changed mine. Pretty sure you changed mine first." Then let's keep changing things, together. They stood at the window, watching the city wake up, watching that tired father carefully portion his food, watching life continue in all its beautiful complexity. Behind them, Maya and Zoe played under the bicycle, that symbol of loss transformed into hope, of rust becoming gold, of endings leading to beginnings. The morning light shifted, hitting the bicycle's gold details, making them glow. The frame that once represented Jude's last desperate attempt to provide had become the centerpiece of their home, a daily reminder that broken things can be made beautiful, that love doesn't follow logic or social rules. That family isn't just blood, it's choice and commitment, and showing up every day. Charlotte looked at the man outside, then at Jude, then at their daughters playing on the floor. She squeezed Jude's hand. "Ready to start changing the world?" she asked. "With you always." They turned from the window together, moving back toward the center of their home, toward their daughters, toward the life they'd built from nothing and everything all at once. The bicycle hung on the wall, catching the light, transforming an ordinary apartment into something sacred. A reminder that the most valuable things can't be bought. They have to be built through sacrifice and courage and belief that broken people can heal each other. That rust can become gold. That endings can become beginnings. That love is the only legacy that truly matters. Outside the world continued its dance of joy and struggle. But here in apartment 2, B4 people had found what so many spend lifetimes searching for: home, family, purpose, love. The bicycle shimmered in the sunlight, golden and proud, watching over them all. A testament to survival, a symbol of transformation, a promise that every ending carries the seeds of a new beginning.
Join us to share meaningful stories by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to start your day with profound lessons and heartfelt empathy.